Hello, it's story time, and today's story is really good. It's called Poonam's Pets, and it was written by Andrew and Diana Davies, and the pictures are by Paul Dowling. Poonam's Pets. Poonam is in class 1, and her teacher is Mrs. Wigg. Poonam is a bit on the small side, and a bit on the quiet side. In fact, you have to put your ear right down by her mouth if you want to hear what she is saying. This is Poonam. "All right, class 1, said Mrs. Wigg one day. "Be quiet and listen. I have something special to tell you." "On Friday," said Mrs. Wigg, "we're going to have a pets assembly. That means you can bring your pets to school and they can go to assembly." Everybody laughed. It was funny to think of pets in assembly. "Now," said Mrs. Wigg, "how many of you have pets?" Everyone in class 1 put their hands up. "That's a lot of pets," said Mrs. Wigg. "Let's see what sort of pets you have." There were dogs and cats and goldfish and rabbits. Ranjiv put his hand up for everything, but Poonam didn't put her hand up at all. "All right," said Mrs. Wigg. "Have any of you got giraffes?" Only Ranjiv put his hand up. "Ranjiv," said Mrs. Wigg, "you can't have a giraffe." "I have," said Ranjiv. "He's got big brown spots." "Poonam," said Mrs. Wigg, "you haven't said anything. What sort of pet have you got?" Poonam got up very quietly and walked to Mrs. Wigg's table, and Mrs. Wigg put her ear down, and Poonam whispered into it. "Poonam's got lions," said Mrs. Wigg to class 1. Poonam smiled, a quiet little smile. On Friday, all of the pets came to the pets assembly. Some of them came in cars, some came in boxes, some came in hutches, some came in cages. Kamaljeet's dog came in a baby carriage because he was an old dog. All the other dogs walked to school on leashes. There's the baby carriage. The goldfish were very quiet and good. The cats were quite well behaved, except for one or two who were making horrible faces at the dogs and spitting at them. Julie's dog, Prince, wanted to sniff everyone's trousers. And Gurpal's dog, Pongo, barked all the time and wanted to fight everybody. "I'm not sure if this pets assembly is such a good idea after all," said Mrs. Wigg. That's a lot of different pets. Wow. Ranjiv came a little bit late and rather out of breath, and he had a big lump under his sweater. "What's in there, Ranjiv?" said Gurpal. "My giraffe," said Ranjiv. "Looks more like a rabbit to me," said Gurpal. "It's a giraffe. It's just not grown up yet." "I think my dog Pongo would like to eat your giraffe," said Gurpal. See that little bunny? It was nearly time for assembly, and everyone in class 1 was there except Poonam. Mrs. Wigg looked at the clock. "Well," said Mrs. Wigg, "I'm afraid we'll have to start. Line up quietly, please. Dogs on the left and cats on the right." Lining up took quite a long time because some of the dogs got mixed up. Dogs are not very good at telling left from right. And then they all went into the hall. The hall looked beautiful. The dogs on one side and the cats on the other side. It did not matter where the goldfish sat because goldfish are very peaceful. When they saw all the other children looking at their pets, the children in Class 1 felt very pleased and proud. And still, Poonam had not come. Mrs. Wig went to the front of the hall. "Good morning, everyone," she said. "Welcome to Class 1's Special Pets Assembly." And then something amazing happened. The door opened, and in came Poonam. And behind Poonam, walking very quietly, one behind the other in a row, were 6 enormous lions. All the dogs hid under the chairs. The cats opened their eyes wide and stared. They had never seen such big cats before. Ranjiv's giraffe was very frightened and burrowed deep under his sweater. The children were frightened as well and wanted to run out. Poonam and her 6 enormous lions walked right to the front of the hall, and the lions sat down in a row, blinking sleepily at the children. They did not look too fierce. They looked solemn and friendly and wise. Poonam went up to Mrs. Wig, and Mrs. Wig bent her ear down, and Poonam whispered into it. Then Mrs. Wig stood up straight. "Poonam says we are not to be frightened," she said. "These are very good lions." Poonam whispered in Mrs. Wig's ear again. "Poonam says her lions will now do their act for you," said Mrs. Wig. Poonam clapped her hands. 2 lions balanced their front paws on chairs, while the lions behind stood up on their back legs, balancing with their paws on each other's shoulders. They all opened their mouths wide, showing their huge teeth, and Poonam gave each of them a big lion biscuit. The children clapped and clapped. The lions sat down in a row again, looking very pleased with themselves. Poonam whispered to Mrs. Wig. "Ask them yourself, Poonam," said Mrs. Wig. Poonam turned and looked at the children. Then she said in a very loud voice, "Would anybody like to ride my lions?" The children were amazed. Nobody had ever heard Poonam speak in a loud voice before. So the whole school went out on the playground, and the 6 enormous lions stood in a row. They were very big, but Poonam and Mrs. Wig helped the little ones to get up. But when it was Ranjiv's turn, he stood and looked at the ground. "What's the matter, Ranjiv?" said Poonam. Ranjiv whispered in Poonam's ear. "What?" Poonam said, "I can't hear you." I'm scared," said Ranjiv. "All right," said Poonam. "I'll hold your hand." Poonam and the 6 enormous lions stayed all day. When it was time to go home, Poonam clapped her hands to the lions. They lined up, and Poonam and her 6 enormous lions went quietly home. Poonam is still a bit small and rather quiet, but when she has something important to say, she says it in a loud voice. She never talks about her 6 enormous lions, and no one has ever seen them since the day of the Pets Assembly. The end. That's all for now. I love you. Bye.